morning and good afternoon, colleagues and delegates. Welcome to the Secure Seminar. My name is Fasuntara Yengpriksawan. I'm a Senior Universal Health Coverage Specialist with the Asian Development Bank Human and Social Development Office. Today in this session, we'll be covering the topic of leapfrogging technologies for management of non-communicable diseases with the lessons learned from South Asia. I would like to give a little bit of background about the secure webinar itself, which is supported by the ADB Technical Assistant on supporting enhanced COVID-19 vaccination and also post-COVID health security response. This webinar number 17 is a collaboration between our Human Social Development Office, Health System Strengthening Working Group, and also the regional technical assistance on integrated primary health care from management of non-communicable diseases. In the session today, the rationale is that currently across the Asian Pacific, there's over 70% of premature mortality, which are attributed to the NCDs. And these non-communicable diseases are across from cardiovascular diseases to cancers to chronic respiratory diseases and diabetes. Recently, there's been an increase in the technology innovations, which are providing enhanced access and affordability to healthcare. And what we found is that it's not only in high-income countries, but also in low and middle-income countries can leverage these technologies for the management of NCDs. And today we'll hear a case study from India, which has extensive and diverse experience in deploying these emerging NCDs technologies. So in this session, we'll have an opportunity to exchange knowledge with a case study from South Asia and to discuss experience, lessons, critical barriers, and enablers for these technologies for Southeast Asia. So we prioritize it in innovative technologies with a focus on primary healthcare. I just want to spend just the next minute talk about the technical assistance itself that we're working on. So we're looking at using the primary healthcare and NCDs and also with the additional scope for mental health. We're looking at the role of innovation technologies, and I would like to just to share briefly some of the materials that we have from the brief, and also the innovation challenges which you will hear from our winner today. Without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Jae Kung Kim, health specialist from the practice team for the panel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Voss, for setting the scene. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Jae Kyun Kim. I'm a health specialist working at ADB. And today we have a very rich pool of speakers from the government, from the NGO, and also from the private sector, who was our Innovation Challenge winner. So without further ado, I would like to invite our first presenter, Dr. Suchika Markan. She's a scientist and mission in charge of medical device and diagnostics mission secretariat from Indian Council of Medical Research. So over to you, Dr. Markan.
Good afternoon, everyone. There is some problem. Just give us.
Sure. It seems like there's some technical glitch. Yes. Let's wait for about a minute to figure it out.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, but there's a slight echo in the sound.
Yeah, that's true. Just a minute, let us check. Better now.
The echo
you hear?
disappeared, but the sound is a bit soft. But I think we can proceed.
Lila, can you just bring the speaker closer? Is it better now?
Yes, it's clear now.
That's great. So can I have my slides, please? Just a minute, I'll just share. Just give me a second. Slides are visible?
Yes, the slides are visible. You may proceed.
So good morning and very good afternoon, all of you. I'm sure we have people from abroad as well. So I'll start my presentation and I will be covering today the India perspective on how India is playing an important role in seeing how we can take forward our innovation ecosystem to spearhead healthcare technologies, particularly in NCDs, as is the topic of discussions today. So people here online would be knowing very well that India has been striving very well in the Global Innovation Index. We were earlier more motivated to do Make in India product development in terms of generics, but now our country is completely aligned to take technology development from Make in India to Innovate in India and for the world. That's how it is very well exemplary. The way we have climbed up the Global Innovation Index is a testimony of India's commitment to leading innovations in healthcare space, wherein in the year 2015, we were at the rank 81, and now we have taken up the rank of 40 in the year 2023, and it's increasing day by day. So that's how we are committed. So if we have to look at the innovation ecosystem in any country, what are the key ingredients? It's not moving, the things. Ingredients for an innovation ecosystem to spur it from innovation to impact, you really need to have good enabling policies by the government of that country. You should have good infrastructure development, advancement, support by the government of that country. You should have appropriate funding opportunities. Evidence-based research and validation mechanisms have to be very much in place. And even if those technologies you have regulatory approval, we need to have some kind of guidelines or mechanisms to ensure cost effectiveness evaluation of those products from public health perspective, and therefore open up the channels for market access. That is the ultimate success of a product moving forward. So our country is working very hard in terms of working on all these essential ingredients of building an innovation ecosystem. I will particularly tell about the role that Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, the government organization which I represent in the Ministry of Health, how we have been working at various fronts to spur the innovation ecosystem in the country. We have been instrumental in creating various kind of enabling policies. The medicos in the medical institutes were not allowed to do entrepreneurship business. They had to work at arm's length transaction. Whereas the engineers, like in IITs, leading institutes across the country, were allowed to do innovation, make startup companies, form and do entrepreneurship related activities, which is very much important when the country is committed to innovation in India. ICMR came out with biomedical policy for entrepreneurship policy for biomedical doctors across the country, by virtue of which there has been a paradigm shift in the way they are committed to innovate. Similarly, in terms of infrastructure development, we have set up various centers of excellence across the country, which are committed to developing different kind of products spurring the innovation ecosystem and making those accessible products used by people at large. We have various kind of funding opportunities by which we provide to various grantees. We have small grants, the intermediate grants of the funding that we give is up to the order of 15 crores and sometimes 20 to 25 crores to spur Make in India in the medical device and diagnostics, in fact, therapeutics and vaccines as well. We do a lot of work in creating evidence. We do evidence-based research and disease surveillance. That is also a very important aspect of spurring the innovation ecosystem. When it comes to preclinical and clinical evaluation support, we have 45 such centers which have been developed and are up and running across the country, which are specializing and provide hand-holding support to do clinical validation for different kind of products, be it devices, diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines. And ICMR also plays an important role. Our ministry, Department of Health Research, is the arm of the country doing health technology assessment, is similar to the one doing globally. From time to time, we keep on creating different kind of enabling policies, which is the baseline, which is very, very much important for building the innovation ecosystem and facilitating the product development across the country. These are the different kind of guidelines which ICMR keeps on releasing for the country from time to time. And these guidelines are linked with the global guidelines, the global directives by WHO and other government organizations. So I'll touch upon all these different ingredients of innovation ecosystem one by one and tell you what our country has done to strengthen and support each of these essential milestones of building that innovation ecosystem. For doing any kind of product development, validation, you really need to have good, appropriate infrastructure facilities established. The infrastructure facilities have to be there not only for technology development, but also for testing, for preclinical studies, for conducting clinical studies, and doing health technology assessment. So ICMR is trying to work on each of these aspects, and we have set up different kind of institutes. Some of the institutes we have built ourselves, and some of the institutes we have tied up, because there is no point in regenerating the wheel. So basically, there is no point in doing the things already available in our country. So we are tying up with the facilities already available in our country for facilitating medtech product development, which is robust and it is relevant, globally relevant. Say, for example, for facilitating testing of the medical device and diagnostics, we have tied up with AMTZ, the medical device park in the Visakhapatnam in the country, which has all the facilities for doing testing. Likewise, for preclinical research, we have set up one facility in our Hyderabad. For clinical studies, we have during COVID times, we had established network of, we called it clinical trial network, called Intent Network, where we have 43 sites across the country. For doing these clinical validations, we work with these sites. Ultimate aim is that we should have robust medical device diagnostic technologies which are relevant for the world to be developed, relevant for India and globally relevant. ICMR thought that medical device and diagnostics in our country, the sector is highly import dependent. So can we create some mechanism within the country, some within ICMR setup, which is only focusing on device and diagnostics, and that's how the medical device and diagnostics mission, the division which I am leading at ICMR came into picture, and we are committed to provide holistic hand-holding support for fostering Make in India in the medical devices and diagnostic sector. The key area wherein ICMR has strengths is in the area of preclinical studies, clinical studies, and preparing appropriate policy documents. So these are the three strategic areas, along with regulatory strategy, streamlining that in which we are providing strategic support. We have different kind of funding opportunities available within the ICMR network through this ICMR funding. And this funding is of the order of $1.78 million to ranges from $3 million to $2 million, which we give to each project. So it's a huge amount of funding that we give to different innovators. We are working very strategically. We thought that to particularly foster Make in India in the medical device and diagnostics, we should set up facilities, the centers of our advanced research at various engineering institutes across the country, the institutes which are working with medical institutes. So we are really fostering interdisciplinary research. These 7 centers we had set up under the division which I am heading at ICMR. These were particularly institutes for technology development. They had put in proposals. These centers are set up in collaboration with medical institutes across the country. These are the leading medical institutes across the country. They could develop a bunch of 50, 60 products, technologies, but we were not very sure that whether they will work well in the ground. These technologies were developed through startup companies incubated at these medical and engineering institutes, particularly in these engineering institutes. So this is the network of startups which came into picture for fostering Make in India in the medtech sector. And for validation and testing, then we have set up further 7, 8 institutes across the country who will be working closely with these centers, the medical and engineering institutes, along with their startup network to validate those technologies and do operational feasibility of those products before we recommend these products for absorption by the national health programs. The things which I have mentioned about, particularly about the different bricks of the innovation ecosystem which the government is thriving to build, will be more clear with these case studies in the NCDs. Some of the case studies, particularly in the medtech sector. This is a device called Autoscope, automated AI-assisted platform for cervical cancer diagnosis. This device, we actually gave the mandate to one of the institutes to develop this device. Cervical cancer is a major issue, not only in India, but also in the entire southwest or southeast, in the entire globe. So we thought that the healthcare personnel in our country are very limited. So how do we make sure that this diagnosis happens at a scale? So there came the requirement of developing an AI platform-based cervical cancer diagnostic device. This is the device which is being developed and it is in the process of being validation by ICMR at one of our medical institutes. We know that this device, I'm sure everybody knows, is backed by a huge unmet clinical need. The cervical cancer diagnosis really is needed across the country. We see 6 lakh cases, new cases globally every year. And lot of mortality is linked with these cases. 56.6% of mortality is observed in these cases which are diagnosed, and 1.25 lakh cases are observed in India. So currently the standard of care is microscopy is the standard of care, and the culture is also being done for these cases. But this needs a lot of skilled manpower. So we thought, can we develop some kind of a product which is which can be used by a technician? It doesn't need a doctor to see and evaluate whether the cervical cancer is there or not for screening of these cases. So we developed 2 kind of products. Even this developing a slide which contains making a smear for the microscope is also a challenge. It also needs a lot of technical support. So we developed 2 kind of products. One was the auto stain, which would automatically make 15 slides at a time, do the automatic staining of those slides, and then Autoscope for cervical cancer screening. It's a very smart device, and the entire product fabrication is being done within the country at a leading engineering institute. The clinical validation is being carried out by ICMR independently. It is being developed at a startup and ultimately it will be scaled up to a bigger product. Maybe it may get transferred to a bigger company. Another point, the basic needs of our country is that we have 1.5 lakhs Arogya health mandirs being established across the countries. They are the PHCs. There, the basic tests, the liver function test, the kidney function test, the very basic test needs to be done. As per the standard of care, as of now, the testing is generally done by the autoanalyzer or a semi-autoanalyzer, but they are very huge instruments. They need a lot of funding. They are very costly products. So we thought that can we make an affordable, accessible, and accurate point of care testing device which measures around, let's say, 300-400 gram, and which can be taken by ASHA workers from place to place, and the diagnosis can happen through mobile app. So this is the product which we are validating at various centers, and it has huge potential for being upscaled. We are developing the liver function panel, the kidney function panel, and we truly believe that these kind of products will make healthcare accessible to all. Particularly, this will help in the screening and management of NCDs very effectively. Similarly, our country has a national program which is called as the Anemia Mukt Bharat. For Anemia Mukt Bharat, our country has committed that we will follow the screen and treat strategy. For screen and treat strategy, the first point is that you need to measure the hemoglobin at the point of care. So we are trying to develop a product which is, in fact, this product has been developed, is under validation at some of our centers. This product is basically a strip-based assay. This will not even need a hemocytometer to do the evaluation, to test and get the hemoglobin accurately tested at various sites. This will also help in screening of anemia in the children, which is most very important. Although we are working with these centers on different kind of products, but ICMR along with Niti Aayog and CDSU thought that can we all come together and create one single window which can provide hand-holding support to innovators, and particularly at three areas wherein hand-holding support is needed for the medtech innovators to spur. These three areas include the regulatory strategy, the clinical validation and uptake of new products. So that's how we thought that all of us need to come together. As of now, the support being provided is a fragmented support by different government agencies sitting at different places. But this MedTech Mitra offers an opportunity to innovators wherein all the different government agencies, they sit together, these stakeholders from these government agencies, they sit together. And primarily these areas when we talk to the innovators, they would say that these are the areas, they are very good in developing proof of concept. Technology is having proof of concept, but developing an established product which is regulatory compliant is a challenge for them. Even if they receive regulatory approval for their products, they are not being absorbed they are not being taken up by the government. So they are not very much satisfied. They do not know how do we upscale those products. So this MedTech Mitra is a very unique opportunity which is providing hand-holding support to innovators for moving from POC to prototype and prototype to product. Even if they have a regulatory compliant product, we have different partners on board which will also help in ensuring public access, because we ourselves, our team works with these innovators, do clinical validation, field feasibility studies, and then recommends those products for public procurement. I will not go into the details of MedTech Mitra, but we are working in MedTech Mitra. We have a lot of knowledge partners, different government agencies have all come together. Niti Aayog, the government's think tank, and ICMR MDMS, our team, we have all come together we are the key coordinators for this program. The testing facility, as I mentioned, AMTZ and KAHT are also party to it. CDSU, the main regulator of our country, sits along with the ICMR team and the Niti Aayog team to provide one-on-one regulatory guidance to the innovators. Then we have our own clinical study sites unit. Intent team sit with us and provide handholding support to do clinical studies for those products. We develop guidelines and do health technology assessment, and even we have NHSRC on board with us in this initiative, wherein they do state pilots of those products so that these products can be recommended for procurement under the national health programs. What MedTech Mitra offers, this is basically these are our key stakeholders. As I mentioned, they are our pillars of strength through which we are providing the handholding support to innovators. We provide both information and handholding support to the innovators. How do we help them? How do we support them? Is by virtue of various partners. Atal Innovation Mission helps and provide guidance to the innovators. They have a network of incubators across the country. They provide guidance to see early stage technologies. Innovators, can they be incubated into their AIM network across the country? For pre-compliance gap analysis and testing, we have KIHT and AMTZ. As I mentioned, they have expertise in this area. They are all partners to the MedTech Mitra initiative. For preclinical study support, ICMR has set up large animal house facility, particularly for MedTech at AMTZ. ICMR has its institute completely dedicated for doing preclinical studies. This large 100-acre big facilities wherein all kinds of studies can be done from small animal to large animal has been made at Hyderabad. This is the clinical study support is provided through 45 centers across the country. This is a part of ICMR network. HTA support is provided through HTA network, which is being monitored and handled through the Department of Health Research, which is our parent ministry. How to contact MedTech Mitra? It's a very simple online portal wherein you just need to log in and one-pager information you have to provide, and then we will come back to you. We have had various rounds since the launch of this initiative. When December 2023, we have had various round of meetings. Our Honorable Minister, Mansukh Mandavia ji, former Honorable Minister, launched this initiative. Since then, we have been having one-on-one meetings with different innovators. Moving forward from import dependence to an Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are very, very sure that this MedTech Mitra will be able to contribute immensely to taking taking the MedTech sector spur to the envisaged $50 billion industry by 2030. And this is the various bricks when put together. We would like to say that India is committed, and we have this great innovation ecosystem in MedTech sector being built through collaboration of different agencies. And India is completely committed to take innovation to impact by virtue of the enabling MedTech ecosystem in our country. That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Markhan, for your insightful presentation. Thank you for sharing the very importance of working together with the government, industry, and also the academia. And the MedTech Mitra was very impressive. I think it's a good case that other countries could also adopt to increase the MedTech part. Thank you very much. And for the notice for the audience, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box in bottom of the Zoom link. Thank you. And for our next presenter will be Dr. Priyanka Bajaj. She's a specialist in health technology innovations from PATH India. To you, Dr. Priyanka. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jay, and good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Just give me a minute and I'll share my screen with the slides. Yeah, I hope the screen is visible in a slideshow. Thank you for coming.
It's very clear.
So for today's presentation, I will be touching upon certain aspects that are coming from our experience of taking these promising fit-for-purpose health technology innovations from a stage where they have proven their proof of concept, but they need to leapfrog the valley of death, some of which Dr. Sucheta, the speaker before me, had very well presented in her presentation. Before going to that, I would like to give an introduction about PATH, and I believe most of you would know that we are an international non-profit. We are based out of Seattle, and we work in 70+ countries to improve the public health outcomes. Now, this is in different areas. We work across devices, diagnostics, health system strengthening, digital, data, vaccine, immunization delivery devices, and combined together, I think if you look at some of the numbers on the left-hand side, we've been able to touch billions of lives across the world. Now, this slide shows a timeline of some of the most promising innovations that have come out through PATH efforts, some of which were in-house developed and later the technology was transferred to a manufacturing partner. And some of these are the technologies where a manufacturing partner has developed a solution, but PATH came in to do operational validation and understanding the usability and programmatic fitment of these solutions for adoption in the public health programs. So right from something which we developed in 1996, we all know Uniject, which are the pre-filled auto-disabled syringes. These were developed at PATH, and later the technology transfer has happened, and now it has been adopted for vaccination programs across the world. To something on the extreme right, if you see, there is a portable MRI machine which is used for pediatric head scans, for which PATH is doing a usability assessment study in different countries. In South Asia, this is going on in India and Bangladesh, and there's one site also in our neighboring country, Pakistan. I would also touch upon a program called Impact Lab that is very close to my heart because I joined this as one of the founding members at PATH in 2018 when this started as a partnership between Tata Trust FISC and PATH. The intent of this program was to create a system integrating platform which is like a go-to platform for innovators to scale their solutions beyond a working prototype. So we have an ecosystem which consists of partners from the public sector, regulatory bodies, course innovators and manufacturers from small young enterprises, as well as from the larger industries who are, have this dedicated pipeline towards solutions for low middle income countries or for low resource settings. We also have something called as technology business incubators in India, and likewise there are incubators and accelerators in other countries with whom we partner in a way that we say that the innovations that are coming out through your pipeline at a particular technology readiness level, we will take these and we will handhold this to a stage where they are fit for the public health systems. There is evidence for their adoption, for informing policy, and for a large-scale deployment. Now, how we do this, we support their validation. And when I say validation, it is primarily on the field, how this performs in a real-world situation. So aspects like usability, feasibility, acceptability by the end users in a very human-centered design approach, and then generating evidence to understand the programmatic fitness of that solution. We also provide connects with the different market access partners. And like today, we also do a lot of knowledge convenings for the larger ecosystem. The center slide shows some of the impact numbers from our journey so far. And these primarily have been observed in the programmatic areas of primary healthcare, especially NCDs, maternal, newborn, and child health, infectious diseases, immunization, and different cold chain devices. And then last but not the least, the impact of climate change on health and how we can mitigate or adapt to that through technology innovations. Now, coming to a focused aspect of looking at NCDs and how primary care technologies can address some of the gaps in the continuum of care of NCDs. So if we look at the burden of NCDs, especially in Asia Pacific, we see that there is a huge contribution, not just in terms of morbidity and mortality, but also this humongous number of $47 trillion in terms of lost productivity, with just the 4 big NCDs and including mental health to that. Of course, in terms of the world burden, if you see in the Asia and Pacific, this is more significantly observed, and socioeconomic factors also play a huge role in access to care and for maintaining that continuum that we were speaking about. Now, we all understand that primary care is the gatekeeper of achieving universal health coverage, and this is the first point of connect of a care seeker with the care provider. But we also acknowledge that there are challenges in accessing that care and in the efficient management of, in this context, when we speak about NCDs. Some of these factors can be noted as inadequacy of the infrastructure itself. The cost factor comes both in terms of accessing a specialist care, access of the specialist at that site also, but also the fees and other things that go along with that to access the care. Now, in terms of other factors like lack of integration of health services or poor adherence to medicines are all the things that make it challenging for an efficient primary care delivery for NCD management and care. What we are trying to say here is, can technology innovation be one of the intervention and one of the strong interventions that can bridge this gap in the healthcare systems? The lines along which this is being thought of, and we see different areas where health technology intervention can really make a difference in the primary care ecosystem. One is in terms of screening and early detection. We know that early screening saves life. It saves resources. It also saves the tertiary care from the burden of cases that are coming in, which could have been addressed at the primary level of care itself. So some of the point of care technologies that are coming in, these AI-enabled smart instruments that are coming in. One example that I'm showing here is also going to present today because they've been the winners of our innovation challenge recently with ADB. And this is a spirometer, portable smart spirometer, which can very well be used at a primary care or point of care setting. other things such as maintaining an electronic health record and having a platform for health information exchange so that the systems are not working in silos, but to speak with each other and data is translated into actionable items. Other things which are, newer generations of medical technologies are such as wearable and remote monitoring devices, which not only just track a patient data, but also enable sharing of this in a real time with their healthcare provider. So there is sort of a feedback loop in which the real-time data is getting in and appropriate care is provided in the right time. Then there could be technologies, and there are in fact technologies for health workforce training, which is more and more being promoted through a digital means because that improves access to a wider coverage. It also enables, in terms of affordability, also once the system is set, it is a more economic way of sustaining it in a longer run. And then, while I mentioned the point of lack of access of specialist care at the primary care setting, so telemedicine is coming in big time to address that challenge. For something which we could cite very nicely from India is the e-Sanjeevani initiative, which is a telemedicine platform for the Ayushman Arogya Mandir, that is the primary care centers in India. And through these, the person getting in a primary care setting can directly connect with the specialist that they need for their particular condition. In the subsequent slides, I will be sharing 3 case examples of how PATH has been supporting the scale-up of technologies, and these come from the South Asia experience. One is, the grant that we are working with the Asian Development Bank, and this is for technology for NCDs and mental health. What we've done here is we have done an extensive landscaping of what are the technologies that are available in the Asia Pacific countries that can address the big 4 NCDs and mental health challenges. Now, these were bucketed under, again, these different areas that I had just mentioned in the previous slide, but also in terms of what are the challenges that they are facing and what it needs to bring up these technologies to the next level so that they are scalable in the low resource kind of settings that all of these LMICs sort of face in uniformity. The findings from this study have also been published as ADB brief, and after this presentation, all the links that I'm mentioning here I'll put in the chat for you to go and see for more details. Also, the mapping that we did, we also created a digital directory of these technologies. So you could visit, this is an open access resource for the ecosystem to visit. There is sectioning in terms of the disease, but also filtration in terms of, you could select the country, you could select the kind of settings that they are most appropriate to use. You could see the manufacturer, go to their website. These are all hyperlinked. And the aim is to keep on building to that and keep it as a live resource. The other thing that we did was to look for what are the new technologies out there which we have not been able to capture through the landscaping assessment. So for that, we conducted an innovation challenge. This was a global challenge called Technology Beyond Borders. And in that, the 2 major categories, NCDs and mental health, each had 1 winner. For the purpose of this presentation, because we're focusing on NCDs, I'm very happy to showcase the winners in that category. Breota Technologies spirometer that I had explained earlier were the winners in the NCD category, but we also had very promising finalists from solutions such as point of care test strips for detection of chronic kidney disease to something which is like a handheld multi-vital parameter monitoring device. So that's the kind of variety that we were able to find, got it evaluated through an expert panel representing right from academia to industry to development sector to the people who are the stakeholders in the adoption of technologies in the health systems. What we also did was a feasibility assessment of the winning solution. So by feasibility assessment, I mean we looked at the user perspective, which was done through simulated use of the device and getting feedback from the end users in terms of how well they see this could be adopted in their day-to-day workflow, and what are the other things that they would want for the technology in order to have a sustainable use. The other thing we did was a stakeholder interviews to understand the programmatic fitment of the technology, and this was done in the context of a South Asian country, Bangladesh. So the findings, the innovators themselves are present, and if they want, they could probably share a few with you. But overall, the response was wonderful, and there were not much challenges cited, but there were some very useful insights in terms of integrating the system with the existing health parameters that are there and not create parallel lines of intervention with the government. The second case examples that I would want to highlight here is again touching upon the Impact Lab platform and just deep diving a little for you to give an idea. And if some of you are interested, we would be more than happy to interact with you after the seminar also. It is, if you look at the bottom part of the slide, it shows a typical product cycle. And in this product cycle, if you see, when we started, we understood that there were a good level of support available to take a solution from ideation to a working prototype. And this was through different incubators, accelerators. But what was missing was to generate the evidence from the field condition and to get it through the approvals, requisite approvals, and launch it with the appropriate market access partners. And that is where we started our initiative in partnership with the different like-minded stakeholders with a common vision. And our support comes in the form of having the solution to a deployment readiness stage, to operational validation, provide market access, and integrate them with the public health system. This third example is from our deployments that have been supported through PATH. And one or two of these are not at the stage where they have been deployed already, but at a stage where they were assessed by PATH in terms of their deployment readiness. But most of these are currently being piloted under our different programs. And if you look at some of the examples, there are solutions such as on the top left corner, you see there is a Maitri Light device, which is a non-invasive point-of-care breast cancer screening solution that looks at thermal imaging and then a layer of AI on top of that to identify and screen if this could be a potential cancerous tissue. Then spirometers, two of these we have already tested, LVPIT and SAVE from Toyota. There is a stethoscope that we have deployed. It is a smart stethoscope in a way that it translates sound to visual signals, and that is interpreted by artificial intelligence. So at a primary care setting where the healthcare workforce is not as skilled to maybe detect a murmur, this stethoscope has been successful, and we've found cases which would have otherwise been missed and have been life-changing in that aspect. So if there are other solutions like the smart scope on the right-hand side middle, you see this is a smart cervical cancer screening solution, and the white color of the probe on top of that, there is a camera that can go inside and take images of the cervical cavity, and then there are algorithms to identify a low risk or a high risk individual, and if this requires further care or referral, or if this is in a single visit can rule out potential cancerous or precancerous lesion. Other solutions like point of care handheld pulse oximeter, which could also be enabled with a probe for pediatric population, then non-invasive hemoglobinometer, portable MRI. So these are some solutions that PATH has supported in terms of advancing these and driving a positive change in the healthcare system. This slide, I will just take a minute on this slide. And this comes from our learnings so far in working with the health system and in working with the innovators, and what we see as the way forward. One is to promote a human-centered design approach. By this, we mean that you design for your end user and do this in an iterative process. They should be involved right from the beginning, and then even when the solution is deployed, the process doesn't stop there, because it's the end user who are going to it is going to affect their workflow. It is going to either add or reduce their burden of work that they already have. If it is you're projecting it as a portable device, then they should be able to carry it in terms of weight and design. So all these aspects are very important, but often neglected in early stages when the product design is happening. Then it's very important to build a sustainable and fit for purpose health workforce. and likewise build fit for purpose and appropriate health technologies and not just retrofit into because something is being made, it need not just be adopted for the sake of it. And there should be incentives in terms of adoption. So that will come in terms of either reducing the burden of work at the healthcare workforce or how they upgrade their skill set and how that translates to their career progression and growth into that. Integrating with the health information system, again, for actionable items. Strengthening the continuum of care through telehealth and telemedicine is something that is very promising and is going to be more and more important in the years that we are going to see. The public-private partnership can really play a huge role in not just the management of disease in that point and in that site, but also in terms of notifications, missing cases if they are coming to private provider but not getting informed to the health system is something that we can also really make a difference to these kind of models. And then it's the foundation needs to be strong. Research and development. Thank you all for your time, and the links I will paste in the chat after this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Priyanka, for the presentation. Thank you for sharing the work of PATH and innovation's role on NCDs control. So PATH has been collaborating with us a lot and closely with ADB on this NCDs and innovation part. And thank you very much for the perfect segue to our next presenter. He is Dr. Gajanan Sakir, and he's the AEB Innovation Challenge winner, which is being presented by Dr. Priyanka during her presentation from Briota. So he's an AI data science and startup leader in digital health, medtech, and public health. So over to you, Dr. Gajanan, and congratulations again on being the winner of the Innovation Challenge.
Thank you. Namaskar. I hope I'm audible and the screen is shared.
Yes, everything's good.
Thank you. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'll build on this discussion on what Dr. Priyanka and Dr. Suchita has already put forward. And both ICMR and ADB and PATH have been very instrumental in whatever little success Briota as a startup has achieved. So we are on a mission to screen 100 million people for non-communicable diseases by 2030. And we represent ourselves as an AI-first point-of-care testing and teleconsultation company, specifically for NCDs. So as Dr. Priyanka was talking about our first handheld device, Spirometer, which is for CRD screening, but eventually we expanded our scope and now we cover 14 NCDs. And we have also partnered with some of the other startups that PATH has selected or ADB has selected as finalists, namely Neodox and Brain Capture. So as a startup representative and an innovator, I had been given few questions by the ADB panel, and that's what I'm going to elaborate on first. So what is the innovative technology that we have put together? As I mentioned, we are an AI-first point-of-care testing platform. And we started with a digital spirometer with Indian lung scale, and that was the first Make in India AI-based and Indian lung scale-based spirometer. But slowly we expanded to other diseases. The question that I was given by ADB team was also talking about the key challenges in piloting and implementing our solution. To be honest, as a startup, whenever you come up with an idea, you think you can change the world. And that's what I thought and my entire team thought, but things are not that easy. Whenever you come up with any innovation, you'll find thousands of naysayers. And the only advice that if I may give is just be persistent. Visit ICMR 100 times. Maybe now you have the MedTech Mitra, so ICMR has done that job easier. But practically, you need to meet the policymakers 100 or 1,000 times, but that's what you need to do. What are the lessons learned? I've been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. This is my third startup. I have also done some work in corporate. But what I've learned is whatever exercise we do in boardroom has not much meaning when it comes to field testing or field learning that we can get, especially in healthcare. It's a different problem. It's a different animal altogether. So think twice if you want to get into it. But if you decide to get into it, then my advice would be don't make your decisions from what market buzzwords are, or what you learn from webinars like this. I'm just kidding. But my advice is go to the field, meet policymakers, respect what the local teams are doing, and then design your solution not to replace an existing system, but to collaborate with it. Because if you come up with any innovative solution which is like path breaking, it might not be accepted by the team or the local team easily. So you need to find out a way where you can collaborate both clinically, practically, cost effectiveness wise, and also in terms of how do you increase the impact. So that's an advice that I can share. And how do we plan to scale up and sustain our technology for deployment? So that's what we'll talk about in next few slides. So as the earlier speakers also talked about the challenge with NCD, the biggest challenge is screening and diagnosis at an early stage. Most of these diseases are curable or at least manageable. But the late screening and diagnosis creates the problem in terms of managing these diseases at secondary and tertiary care. And screening and diagnosis is not possible at community care or primary care because of the high cost of technology. There is a practical issue with trained manpower, and finally, specialists to interpret the test results. So the problem is like an iceberg. So how do we solve it? We need to make sure that whatever is available with the large hospitals or district hospitals, to some extent, at least it could be made available with the Ayushman Bharat, what we have in India, or the primary healthcare centers or community healthcare centers. It's not practically possible for a rural person or a person from the remote towns to go to a district hospital and get early screened. And that's where the delayed screening or delayed diagnosis comes. So if you can think about ways of using technology to take the availability of screening diagnosis instruments from big district hospitals to primary healthcare centers, probably we can solve some of the problem. So that's what we did. We built the spirometer first for community setting, but then we started adding more devices to our backpack, what we call as a Suraksha backpack. We have a mobile app. It's available in almost all the Indian languages, at least for the states that we currently work with. We have an AI-based clinical decision support system. Our entire system is built with Indian data set of our work of last 6 years. We have fed in data for more than 150,000 tests from the local settings. And we have also set up a system where we can do a teleconsultation. And of course, we do work with eSanjeevani and other platforms provided by Government of India. Being a GenCare startup, we got an early opportunity to work closely with policymakers and with ICMR as well as with other government agencies. And that was a key for us to get into early pilots. Okay. Just moving on, our system is CDSO certified, and we are also the only startup or a company for now which has an HTA approval from the appropriate agencies with ICMR. We also partnered with HLF PPT. We are a IIIT Delhi incubated startup. So we have some association with IIIT Delhi and SPI Lab. And of course, we have taken a device from Bhabha Atomic Research Center. And for research, we have established ourselves in Denmark. So we do work with Danish entities closely. So as I said, the NCDs that we cover are namely these 14 NCDs. And we have added another communicable disease TB because that's what we saw as a need for the rural markets that we work in. And this was a brief video where we are doing door-to-door screening and door-to-door survey. The first thing that we do is the mobile app has a lot of questionnaires which are specifically designed with Ministry of Health and with CBAC-based survey. And the AI figures out if this particular person at home needs any specific NCD screening further using a POCT device. So that's the first stage that our solution Suraksha works. Second stage of solution is actually related to the point of care testing devices. So as I said, we have been working with spirometer, but then we added multiple other devices to our backpack. And now we are able to do point of care testing for 14 diseases. The AI sits in backend and it figures out a health score. So for each disease or for each organ, we have a health score. And we also have a low, medium, high risk assessment done based on the machine learning algorithms and also based on the local data set that we have. We have always thought about not complicating the process and not making it, something which may not work in the local settings. Like we work in Chhattisgarh, there are challenges, they are different. We work in Gujarat, challenges are again different. We work in remote parts of Karnataka. So we always made sure that whatever technology we have, it should be available for the local settings and it could be easily adapted. So we have created, we work with mobile medical units also, where we have tried to use our technology wherever we had some technology challenges. The point of care devices, beyond what we have on our own, as I said, we've been partnering with other startups. This is a device that you see for EEG from brain capture. And we've also partnered for FibroScan for NAFLD. And we have some solution for digital X-ray as well. The third stage that we do is we collaborate closely with the local health system or the eSanjeevani program, where after screening for the diagnosis confirmation, the facility is made available at the PSC or maybe at the district hospital, depending on the test required. And if required with eSanjeevani and Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, we provide the final level of support, that is teleconsultation and also continuum of care or treatment and medicine supply. Right? So most of the solutions that we have been used are already being tested and validated in various settings. So just to highlight what devices we have in the backpack. So we have a solution HemoPro, which is with the NeoDocs, our own spirometer. We use the locally available BP meter, glucose meter. We have a 12-node ECG device, which was initially designed by Bhabha Atomic Research Center. The Kidney Pro, which is in association with NeoDocs, NAFLD, EEG Pro, which is with the brain capture. So some of these devices is what we use in our backpack. We have our own Oral Pro and Breast Pro examination device. And for cervical cancer, we are currently using the available system that is with the PSC, but we'll be keen to explore more what ICMR is currently working on and see if we can collaborate. That's for the handheld digital X-ray and for the sickle cell disease screening as well. The way we realized is once we have done pilots, if we really want to get into the next level, we need to work closely with policymakers and get some guidance and support there. So we started working closely with NCD Department, Government of India as a GenCare startup, and they have really supported us very well. We started working with HLF PPT or PSU organization as an implementation agency, and with them, we are currently working in 6 states, and slowly we are expanding to other states as well. As I mentioned in the beginning, innovation is not enough. The innovation needs to be accepted by the policymakers or by the local agencies. And the best part to do that, I would say, is to understand what the national program is and try to see if we are aligned. If not, instead of making changes or trying to make changes at the policy level, probably you can make changes to your solution. So that's what we did. We collaborated very closely. We took learning from the ministry and from ICMR and other agencies, and we adopted the best practices that were recommended in part of national program, and slowly we became part of that. Currently, we have ongoing projects in multiple states, and our solution was also accepted as part of what they call as a PIP program as an innovation in 12 different states. We have touched about 150,000 lives already, and beyond India, we are already active in at least 4 different countries. So that's about our Suraksha and the NCD program that we have put together with our own solution. We started with a small spirometer device, but now in support with ICMR, Ministry of Health, HLF PPT, and some of the other startups and IIIT Delhi that we collaborate with, we have taken this CRD screening to a totally new level of doing single window 14 NCD screening in an affordable and accessible way. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gajana, for your presentation. It really shows how the government and also partners like PATH can work with the company. And it also showed that this NCD innovation, it's not just used in like a very luxury tertiary hospital. It showed how it's connected to the primary healthcare and how it enhances the access to healthcare from the vulnerable people in the primary healthcare setting. So really thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our next speaker, I would like to kindly invite our own director from health practice team, Dr. Eduardo Banzon. So he's the global champion of universal health coverage. And before he joined ADB, he has served as a president and CEO of Philippines Health Insurance Corporation, also worked as a regional advisor in the WHO Eastern Mediterranean office, Bangladesh office, and also in the World Bank. So over to you, Dr. Banjo. Thank you very much for joining me.
And thanks a lot, Jay. So I just love listening to all the three presentations, and I think it would be good to reflect on the title of this webinar, Leapfrogging the Technologies. As I was, and I will go back to that later. But when I was listening, I remember, I don't know who of you is probably old enough here. But when I recall the first mobile phones when they came out, they were like big machines. You have to carry, you have to have carry it like a bag, and then the phone. It looks like a phone, like a regular phone. But then that was the first time mobile phone, and when I first saw it, I was reacting basically. I said, like, why would we? What would happen to this? How can we ever? How would this ever get traction? This mobile phone, and this is probably like 25 years ago. And now, of course, we have seen how the technology has leapfrogged, and and every new changes in the way mobile phone technology has done, and we have seen it basically change the lives in our everyday lives, and even healthcare in general. And in a sense, we have seen this type of and then we continue to see all of this, how new approaches in the way mobile phone is done has moved to more leapfrogging, moved to more adoption of ways which have made it more efficient, more responsive, and more equitable. I think equitable is a powerful word because particularly our speakers were from India, and the way they've actually facilitated and enabled how even low-income population would have access to mobile phones. And it is within this context that I reflect. I was listening to the presentations. It's like keep on thinking, why isn't Burrata now the norm? Why is what Path has been pushing has become the norm in how we address NCDs? Why is it this part of every primary care facility in Asia and the Pacific? Great presentation from Dr. Markan, and how she basically showed how India is facilitating the adoption and the deployment of this technology. But I think for us in this development bank, the challenge for us is, why haven't we done more to facilitate and enable this? What can we do more to leapfrog? Why can't we help our other developing member countries really start adapting and deploying these technologies? We keep on discussing the challenge on how to address NCDs, how the difficulty of trying to monitoring the detection and all that. But here, as I listen to Brata, there's a lot of things they're doing that actually what I cannot imagine would be difficult to adopt in other countries in Asia and the Pacific. And I think it is within this context that I probably would want to have the audience ask the questions now. Because what we in ADB is probably committing right now is that we will really support and more leapfrogging. I think that's the word, that's the operative word that we in ADB will talk. A lot of our countries do have, in a sense, gaps in their facilities. In a lot of our countries, they're having problems with their diagnostics. It's quite unfortunate that sometimes our response is still the traditional way. As we work with Path, as we listen to all this, we look into all these experiences. I think we have an opportunity to leapfrog, to move up. You don't have to go to the pain that other countries have gone through, and actually, in a sense, really push for the adoption of a lot of this point of care diagnostics and new way of diagnostic that's more responsive to the people that who really needs the health services that we are all supporting for. So I'll stop there, Jay. And thanks again, and congratulations to all the participants, to all the speakers, and to all those who are listening.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Banjon, for sharing your insight. So as Dr. Banjon mentioned, we will be having a Q&A session, and we really encourage the audience to come in actively. And I would like to hand it over to Dr. Andy for facilitation of the Q&A session. Over to you, Dr. Andy.
Thank you, Jay. Although we have a lot of questions lined up, and 3 have already been responded to by Dr. Makran. I'll start with some. Okay, what what's the difference? What about the AMC and CMC of product? What about the calibration of product? Would anyone want to respond to that?
So, Mr. Andy, I think I can give a more generic perspective to that coming from our overall experience, but if Gajanan would want to address specifically for Priorita,
Okay.
he could in as
Yeah.
well. I think AMC and CMC is very, very important, not just in the sustained use of the device, but also in keeping that confidence in the innovation for the health system, so that when the next time they are trying to adopt it to another setting, that experience is not just for the one-time performance, but for the overall user experience. So like I said, in terms of the human-centered approach, this is equally important that the user experience of troubleshooting, of the maintenance, of the support with the customer care is taken care, and it's not just one-time deployment and getting away with that. Gajan, over to you for this specifics about that.
Right. So, what Dr. Priyanka just mentioned, just building upon it, specifically in our case, when we started with spirometer is not a new technology. It's been existing for several decades now. But the biggest challenge is calibration, because if you don't do the calibration right, you won't get the right results. So when we started deploying a spirometer in primary care, we realized that calibration has to be done always, and a local calibration system needs to be provided. So we built a calibration syringe as well, along with the system. And we created some kind of an auto calibration working with the syringe, where it could be easily done by the local staff. So AMC and support and understanding the post-sale support requirement, I think, is key. And in our case, we have been able to do calibration at the local level. Second thing, the system that we have built in, at least for the pilots, we just don't say, okay, buy these devices. The approach that we have taken is, let's work with you, make sure that your team is able to use these devices, and till the time they are able to do so, we handhold the implementation. So we have started providing service as test as a service. So most of the cases where it has worked for us is where we actually did the initial test. Then on field, we trained the public health system staff to use the technology instead of just doing a one-day training first and then passing it on to the system.
Thank you, Dr. Gajan. Thank you also, Dr. Priyanka. Another question is, okay, I was wondering if ICMR, this is from Aditya and Hansare. I was wondering if ICMR is also envisioning post-validation support to incubate the companies in commercialization journey of medtech startups. For instance, any support provided by ICMR medtech Mitra in linkages with medtech parks in India. Anyone who would want to respond to that?
Mr. Andy, I'm not sure if Dr. Suchita is still on the line, because we know that there was some personal exigency at her end.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
briefly touch upon, because from her previous interaction with us, we know that ICMR does provide, as a partner, this connect with the National Health System Resource Center, which do the field evaluations, and later this information is used as evidence for the policies and for adoption. They do also connect with the medical parks like the Andhra Pradesh Medical Technology Zone, which AMT said Dr. Suchita already mentioned. And yeah, so there are systems. If we can, we will touch base with her offline and provide that information in more detail.
Okay. Another question on the issue of okay, here is on the issue of accessibility and equity. How can digital health technologies be made accessible to individuals from low income or marginalized communities who may lack access to smartphones, computers, or reliable internet connections? And another related issue, the question is, are gender dimensions also considered, in particularly access and ownership of smartphones by women and men? Would anyone would like to expand on that, on access?
If I could come in, we did
And
a study
yeah.
on, that was a light dimension, but we had done a study on what are the prerequisite for doing a commercial validation for technologies under different buckets. So medtech, digital health, and supply chain solutions is what we studied in detail. And it's a very valid question. How do we provide equity in terms of access where smartphones are not available? However, we also see that it's the condition is much better than we think. The accessibility is not a challenge in itself. It's more like the higher end versions and the version of Android or iOS that is there. So it is also for the innovators to be informed, and we see this. Most of the innovators work on the very basic version of the Android systems that are there. In terms of the connectivities and the 5Gs and 4Gs, in India, we fortunately have a much advanced system. We also had exposure to the Bangladesh health system, and it's also impressive that the tablets and smartphones have been provided to the primary care centers by the government there. So it's much better than we imagine it to be. We also have some experience from Nepal, and in terms of connectivity in the mountain regions in the Himalayan areas, of course, there is some connectivity issue. And for that, we also need to think about, different innovative models of health provisions. Could be hub and spoke, could be a center where that telemedicine capability and digital connectivity is there, but not far from the people. In the northeast regions of India, where these are hard to reach settings and floods are very common. We see a lot of boat clinics coming up, which take the severe cases to the hospital, but also have a suitcase kind of lab and facilities, immunization services with them. So they are going to the people and not just the other way around. In terms of then coming to the gender side of it, it's an important consideration which is coming up in all of the conversation that we make. So there are challenges, we can't just get away with that, but it's also just that more and more awareness coming in and focus from the government, from the donors towards the development partners like us. Now the gender lens and gender equity in terms of the output is something that we also integrate right from the beginning.
Thank you, Dr. Priyanka. Another question from Dr. Himangi from Smile Foundation. Would like to know how the oral cancer screening probe works and give results. Dr. Gajanan?
Right, that's a good question, and thanks for that. So what we have done for the oral cancer is there are two parts of screening that we do. One is just a specific light-based screening, like an oral ID device, which Dr. Himangi might be familiar with. And what we do is with the light-based screening, we figure out if there are any observations which could be noted on a simple OCR sheet. And then the mobile app scans the marking done on the OCR sheet, and we calculate an AI score. And then we ask for 8 weeks gap, and then we do the same screening again. And this machine learning algorithm or the AI system is again designed and developed with Indian data. And we have seen pretty good results, specifically in the states that we have worked. So that's a first level of screening, which is very cost effective, and it could be done even by community health workers. The second level of screening, which we are doing with a spectroscopy instrument provided by Bhabha Atomic Research Center. So that increases the cost of screening. But again, though it's not a confirmatory diagnosis, but of course, it's more validated towards the oral cancer screening. What we have realized is in most of our community health or rural health related initiatives, the first level of oral pro device screening or the light-based screening with AI and allowing ASHA workers to get training on doing this first level of screening actually works. where we can then filter out candidates and send them to either for the spectroscopy-based screening or directly to an oral surgeon or a dental surgeon for further examination.
Thank you. This one's question from Ye. She's our colleague based in the Indonesian resident mission in Jakarta. It's wonderful to see a wide array of new technologies, particularly point of care diagnostics for NCDs that can be applied at primary care level. What do you think are the level of adoption, accessibility so far, percentage of coverage in states or nationwide, and what are the barriers you identified for wider adoption? Thank you very much. So, Dr. Gajaran, Dr. Priyanka.
Yeah, and maybe I can tell from my experience, and like Briata is in the existence for last 6 years, and what we have seen is every year there is actually a leapfrog jump in terms of acceptance of newer technology. I mean, when we started with Spiro Pro device just before the COVID times, I know, as I mentioned in my presentation, there will be 1,000 naysayers, but even with the doctors, with the policy makers, everybody was saying spirometer is not for primary care or for community care.
Mhm.
And we had to just stick to the point that why not? And let's try to answer the questions why not and try to see how technology can be built around it. But when now we talk about spirometry, and not only Briatas, I mean, for that matter, any startup or a digital company that has come up with a easy to use spirometer, now there is a high level of adoption and high level of acceptance. So I would say over the years, people have started accepting it. As long as you don't do something which is not, just the buzzword. I mean, you suddenly say that with one AI algorithm, we are going to tell if this patient has cancer or not. Uh, Nobody, as long as you don't have that kind of a solution, as long as
Mm.
you have a clinically accepted and clinically validated, uh, solution or a design that the doctors are used to using for so many decades, so many years, people are ready to accept it. I mean, everyone want to solve this NCD screening challenge, whether it's at government level or at agencies like PATH or supporting funding agencies like ADB. But if you have an innovation which is like uh, totally different, no one has heard about it, then probably you'll have challenges in adoption. But otherwise, if you do it in small parts and show where AI could be used only for that particular part, the accessibility increases. I'll just give another example like this cardiac pro device that we have, the ECG, 12 node ECG. Initially, we thought about a single node or 6 node ECG, but doctor said, no, we don't rely on it when it comes to STEMI. So we need a 12 node ECG. So instead of spending time on that single node or 6 node, we quickly switch to the 12 node ECG. Second thing, though the AI is there, people or doctors or policymakers don't want to rely on life-saving decision with AI still today, right? I mean, you can't tell a person has a STEMI just based on an AI saying it. So we said, okay, so we have a teleconsultation platform, whether in 3 minutes we have an SLA where a cardiologist gives a confirmation on top of AI. And now then that is accepted. So long story short, I think accessibility has increased, but don't try to bring up something which is, developed in the lab, but has little relevance when it comes to clinical acceptance and for the practical realities. People would definitely, or policymakers would definitely welcome if you have practical and clinically validated solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Gajan. There are a lot of questions more. Some would probably be responded to online later on, but uh, I think this series of questions would also cover countries who are in developing or working on innovative digital health technologies, particularly on data privacy and security. What are the potential risks and benefits of sharing patient data with third-party organizations of researchers? And how can digital health systems be protected against cyber attacks and data breaches? How can patients ensure that their data is used ethically and in accordance with their consent?
That's a very interesting and very deep question, I would say. But again, from my limited experience, we are an Indo-Danish company, which means we are based in India with our presence in Denmark as well. So we take data privacy and data security very seriously, both for India as well as because we are part of European Union's presence. The simple answer I will give it is decide what the data you want to use for. So as long as you have defined an ethical way to use for example, what we do is we anonymize the entire data and we use it to strengthen our screening outcome algorithms, right? But we don't sell that data to any third party or a pharma company for that matter for developing a new drug. Our objective of using the data in an anonymized way is only to strengthen our algorithms. So what we do is when we collect the data, we take permissions from the user, and once the data goes into the system, we anonymize it, and then we are able to use it. In terms of other simple things or small things that we have done in India is like we have integrated our system with Abha ID, which is a government of India's system, and NCD portal as well, again, which is government of India's portal. So we don't claim neither we have any intention to store this data on our servers or locally. We basically maintain a arm's length relation when it comes to the data, and we ask the public health system to own and store the data. Of course, we make it technically possible for them, but we don't want to get into storing the data. But the anonymized form of data we use in our system to strengthen our algorithms. That is one. In terms of cyber security and cyber threats, I mean, again, gone are the days when you had to build this system in-house. Now, as long as you follow some basic principles, there are lots of checks and balances and lot of systems available already which take care of it. So that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you. Now from Dr. Manish Singh of the Grid Council, my question is, okay, the question is to address to Dr. Gajanan. Great innovation. I just want to know more about the Suraksha, specifically what are the sensitivity and specificity values of the Suraksha in detecting potential threats. Dr. Gajanan.
Right. So, sorry, I hope I'm audible because I couldn't hear you, Mr. Randy, but I can read the question from Dr.
Yeah.
Manish. So, am I audible?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So, Dr. Manish, in terms of specificity and sensitivity, specifically for SpiroPro, we have already got the HTA approval and ICMR validation done, as well as a lot of validation done and clinical studies done. So we have a high number of specificity and sensitivity acceptable for SpiroPro device. And in fact, Grid Council also did one economic assessment for our SpiroPro device. For other devices, also we have a high level of specificity and sensitivity, which I can share with you separately if needed. But as I said, we are not doing anything which is not clinical, which means we are using only the device once we have the acceptable specificity and sensitivity in the system. For example, when we use the brain capture device for the EEG, it's already CE marked device. The Neodox kidney profiling kit or the hemoglobin kit, again, a very high level of sensitivity and specificity. Same with our breast cancer device or the oral cancer device, we have received, after clinical validation, we have received various clinical publications and also various rewards related to the data that was collected during clinical validation exercise. So all of our devices in the POCT backpack has high level of sensitivity and specificity. What we have not yet done is the specificity and sensitivity for our AI algorithm. And I think that's still work in progress, not only for us as a startup, but also for ICMR and other agencies in India to come up with a structure where AI algorithms can be put under high level of specificity, sensitivity, if you may say, just like what is there on the POCT devices. But what we have done on our side, our AI algorithms, like I said, are built based on the local data set. And we don't only stop at screening, but we go to the level of taking the patient to the diagnostic confirmation and then cross-validating our results. Just to give an example, very recently we did 1,000 women screening camp in Gandhinagar municipality. And we could have very well stopped only after breast cancer screening or oral cancer screening or cervical cancer screening. But we provided support and worked with Gandhinagar municipality hospitals to even do the mammogram and PET scan. And as of today, I have results of the mammograms that were done, and we have finally, out of the 1,000 screening done, we have found 2 confirmed breast cancer patients. So I believe that the AI algorithm that we have has a high level of specificity and sensitivity as well when you take it to the level of diagnostic, right? So that is something that I would say is a work in progress. But in terms of POCT devices, they are all validated, approved, and hence they have a high level of specificity and sensitivity.
Thank you so much. There are more questions. We hope that you could respond to them online, and we hope that there will be another webinar of this type, because I also got a lot of questions here, particularly on the cost, comparing it to traditional methods and the digital. But I'd like to turn this over now to Dr. Jay. For the synthesis, and then later on for the closing. Jay?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Randy, and thank you for the whole audience for your very active Q&A. I feel terrible that I took time so we couldn't answer all the questions, but I hope Dr. Priyanka and Dr. Gajana could type on the answers there. Well, there was a very rich discussions by the speakers and also from Dr. Banjon and on the Q&A session. But I just want to emphasize a unified message came from the speakers, which is that we all have to work together to make this technology to be used in the real world. So there should be the magic triangle, which has the government and also the private sector who has the digital technology, and the development partners like ADB and PATH. So I would like to invite everyone here who is also listening from various of sectors so we can work all together to leverage the digital technologies to better care of our people in the countries. And not for further ado, I would like to hand over to Dr. Alexo for our final remarks. Dr. Alexo, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Primary healthcare plays a pivotal role across health systems as it provides essential healthcare right in the communities, which is where people need it the most. We have heard today how India, which is a country with a vast population and very diverse healthcare needs, has been leveraging digital technologies for improved non-communicable disease management. The integration of these technologies can greatly improve healthcare delivery, that is both the efficiency, the access, as well as the quality of care, not only in India and as well as elsewhere. While these technologies have potential, there are perhaps 3 main challenges going ahead that I'd like to discuss. The first one is the digital divide between urban and rural areas, and in some countries between men and women, as was discussed today. The second one is data privacy, which entails protecting data and ensuring that or preventing unauthorized access to confidential, particularly individual data. And then the last one is interoperability, and that entails setting up the foundations for an interoperable health system, from a single data dictionary through the single registries of patients, providers, and facilities, to the implementation of interoperability protocols such as FAIR. By addressing these challenges and leveraging the power of technology, India and other countries can improve non-communicable disease management and the wellness of their populations. So at this point, I would like to thank our panelists for sharing their wisdom with us and dedicating their time, as well as everyone else, all the participants for joining. And I would also like to mention 2 further webinars that are planned for the future ahead. The first one is a webinar in September focusing on local health spending in Japan. And the second one in October on pharmacovigilance. So the secure team at ADB will continue organizing webinars and we'll make sure to keep you in the loop. Thank you very much, and I wish you a pleasant afternoon. Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.